the symbol of quality entertainment, Guthrie-Renker Video.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Dean Martin Celebrity Roast, honoring the man of the hour, Mr. Bob Hope, with tonight's guests, Flip Wilson, Jimmy Stewart, Howard Cosell, Jack Benny, General Omar Bradley, Phyllis Diller, Milton Berle, Neil Armstrong, Rich Little, Ginger Rogers, Reverend Billy Graham, Johnny Bench, Foster Brooks, Governor Ronald Reagan, Nipsey Russell, Don Rickles, Sugar Ray Robinson, Mark Spitz, Zsa Zsa Gabor, John Wayne on location, Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, and your roast master, Dean Martin. And tonight's very special man of the hour, Bob Hope.
This is the most sensational happening since they found Toady Field's pantyhose in the backseat of Wilbur Mills's car. Bob was born in Eltham, England, one of 7 brothers, and oddly enough, there are similarities in our birth data or data. Either one. Bob was the 5th son of a stonemason, and I was the stone son of a white mason with a 5th. There was very little excitement in the town of Eltham, England, except on Saturday nights. That's when the townspeople sat around and waited for their polygrip to harden. As a young boy in England, Bob never had much to say. He couldn't afford writers then. In the late 30s, Bob was in vaudeville and then starred on his own radio show. When World War II broke out, Bob Hope volunteered to go overseas to entertain our GIs. Bob holds the singular distinction of being the only civilian who was ever slapped by General Patton. All during the war, Bob was always where the action was, the wax barracks. During the Italian campaign, when the bombs fell on Salerno, Bob did a heroic thing. He threw himself on Sophia Loren. 9 times he threw himself on Sophia Loren. And at Bob's last Christmas show in Vietnam, it was Ho Chi Minh himself who said to Bob, "Sang Tzu Tang Namanuhu," which means no more bring Jim neighbors. And now I'd like to introduce Flip Wilson, who is also known to millions of Americans as Geraldine. But like most overnight successes, Flip worked many years to achieve stardom. There was a time when he would put on the same blonde wig, miniskirt, and high heels, and no one would recognize him except for a couple of psychiatrists and a handful of Vice Squad officers. Ladies and gentlemen, here she is, Flip Wilson.
At first, I'd planned to talk about Bob Hope's contribution to the advancement of black people. So I did a little research. And I found out that, Bob, you've stiffed us. Then I remember there was one area where he must have come across with a little bread for the brothers. I said, there had to be this one area. I mean, this had to be a lock for us. So I checked it out. Nothing. Found out he washes his own car. So my subject tonight will be golf. At least we have that in common, Bob. I play the game, too. I don't have to tell you what my handicap is. You told me when I tried to join your club. Bob, I must say that I've always envied your having your own golf tournament, the Bob Hope Desert Classic. I've decided to have one of my own, called the Flip Wilson Ghetto Open. Now, Bob, I know your tournament is played to benefit the Eisenhower Memorial Hospital. Mine will be played for the Richie Pryor Clinic for rat bites and bullet wounds. The winner of the tournament will receive a check for $36,000. Or if he prefers, $100 in actual cash. In case there's a tie, it'll be settled by sudden death. That way, we won't have to play an extra hole. In addition, we're gonna have some special prizes, too. For instance, if anyone makes a hole in one, he wins a car. The exact make and model to be determined sometime late that night. And just like you have celebrities at your tournament, we're gonna have our own group. You had Billy Graham, we're gonna have Reverend Ike. You had Dinah Shore, we're gonna have Moms Mabley. You had Spiro Agnew, we're gonna have Spiro Agnew.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Governor of California, the Honorable Ronald Reagan. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. I was a little surprised when I was asked to be here tonight to honor Bob Hope. Well, surprised isn't exactly the right word. Annoyed. I've got a lot of important decisions to make in the next several weeks. Like, do I go with Beacons or stick with U-Haul? Now, in accepting this invitation, I don't want the taxpayers to think that I'd make a special trip down here just to be on this program. Now, that would be frivolous. I just happen to be in town anyway for something really important. A guest shot on Hollywood Squares. Seriously, Bob would do well in politics. He certainly has to be one of the most familiar faces in America. He's entertained over 10 million troops and seen by more than 100 million TV viewers. And if you throw in the 27 people who've seen his movies, you have a pretty sizable constituency. Of course, I'm the last one to criticize somebody's movie career. I've had a few disasters myself. I don't criticize governors either. Bob Hope is a man of remarkable accomplishments. He's been America's most favored comedian at a time when America was in her most bewildered state of mind. He's entertained 6 presidents. He's performed for 12. Seriously, Bob, I know that over the years you've received many tributes and awards, and it gives me great pleasure to tell you that in honor of this occasion, the state legislature has unanimously passed a bill naming you California's foremost citizen. I vetoed it.
Our next guest is America's favorite Western hero, John Wayne. When Duke first rode into California, all he carried was a gun and a snakebite kit in case he was bitten by Don Rickles. And now Duke's up in Oregon filming his new movie. See if you can spot the clever way he sneaked in a plug for his picture. Ladies and gentlemen, here's my old buddy, John Wayne.
Hi, Bob. This is John Rooster Cogburn on location in Bend, Oregon, filming the sequel to True Grit, co-starring Katharine Hepburn, a Hal Wallace production, Wayne. Did I do that okay, Dean?
Perfect, pal.
I'm really sorry I couldn't be there with you tonight, Bobby. You know that one of the great disappointments of my career is that I have never been able to make a picture with you. It's about as disappointing as not doing one with Jane Fonda. I gotta go now, Bob. My big scene is coming up. We have got a little problem. Hepburn thinks it's her big scene. See you, friend. Have a good roast.
Bob Hope has one of the most hectic schedules in the world. A typical week may find him in a dozen cities, 10 different countries. The responsibility of flying him to all of his commitments, such as the roast tonight, rests on the shoulders of one person. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the man who has been Bob Hope's personal pilot for the last 32 years, Captain Foster Brooks.
I see that you parachuted to safety, as I did. I hate laying those great big gray things down in the dark. As the steward for Alitalia just told you, I am boob hops hop boo boo. I am Bo. I am our host's personal pilot. So far this year, we've logged 3 million miles together. Most of them trying to find this place. Not everyone is qualified to perform a task as demanding as the one I have chosen to make my life work. It requires a man with razor-sharp reflexes, a man with complete control of his senses, a man who's able to execute split-second decisions, knowing that the slightest error in judgment could mean the demise of one of the most revered and best-loved citizens on Earth. I think I'm going to throw up.
Bob, a lot of your friends and admirers couldn't be here tonight. They're so lucky. So they sent you some wires. I'm going to read. This first one says, "Dear Mr. Hope, you probably won't remember me, but you said many, many years ago that when you made it big in show business, you'd come back and get me. I'm still here in Cleveland, your wife, Dolores." I think you'll be very grateful for this last one. It says, "Dear Bob, I've been trying to get your attention for some time, but you've been too preoccupied. I feel this is important enough to send a telegram. Your fly is open, signed Jimmy Stewart." Time for my... He's not an old buddy, he's a good buddy. Mr. Jimmy Stewart. Jimmy and I made a picture together a few years back called Bandolero. In the picture, Jimmy could draw his gun in less than half a second. But by the time he said, I got you covered, everybody in the picture was dead. Ladies and gentlemen, my pal, Mr. Jimmy Stewart.
I was just thinking, making outdoor pictures like Bandolero must do you good. You know, you always had a kind of a healthy glow. As I remember, you had a glow on all during the picture. There was one scene in that picture that I think I liked you best of all in, and that was the fight in the saloon. And there you got knocked down a flight of stairs, you crashed into a table, you tossed over a bar, you're thrown out of a window, and you never spilled a drop. I'm here tonight to salute Bob Hope, a man who knows the secret about how to make people laugh. And the one thing you can say about Bob, he sure knows how to keep a secret.
You know, as a matter of fact, I was in a picture with Bob one time. It never reached the theaters. It was Bob's first dramatic role and his last one. But Bob played a sheriff, and in the big scene, he'd just been shot, see, and I was kneeling in the street beside him with cradling his head in my hands, and they'd written this marvelous death speech for him, and I remember Bob looking up at me, and he had a sort of a dramatic cough that he'd worked up, and his face was all twisted in pain, and he began his dying speech, and he said, "This is Bob. It's good to be shot in Tucson, Hope." I want you to get those two guys that shot me. One of them was tall and skinny. He was so skinny you had to tie knots in his legs to make knees. The other guy's real ugly. In fact, vultures used to fly past him with one wing over their eye. Things are getting dark, partner. Things are getting... We've ridden a lot of trails together, you and me. Most of them side saddle. As I was saying, I owe you a lot. I owe you a lot, partner. So, thanks for the memory.
And now I'd like to introduce Mr. Milton Berle. And now if we give him a nice round of applause, maybe we can get him to remain in his seat. By the way, Milton's new autobiography is out, and it should be a bestseller. It has sex, violence, depravity, and obscenity, all handled with exquisite taste and dignity. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Milton Berle.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am very, very, very happy to be here tonight to honor my good friend Bob Hope. He and I go back a long time, back to the days when hot pants was a condition. In 1938, Bob Hope became a big movie star. He made Paramount Studios what it is today, an empty lot next to a cemetery. That was many years. I'm sorry, that's when Bob Hope in those days thought he was a lover. Didn't you, Bob, huh? Poor Bob. Today we're going through a sexual revolution just when Hope ran out of ammunition. This man that I am talking about, this Burt Reynolds of the menopause set, where does he get his energy to keep working the way he does? It's very simple. He loves to keep busy, he loves to make people laugh, and besides, Dolores wants him to get the hell out of the house.
Our next guest is Billy Graham, a man known all over the world, and he and Bob Hope have been friends for a quarter of a century. I count Billy Graham among my friends, too, even though the first time I shook hands with him, one half of me went sober. It is now my pleasure to introduce the Reverend Billy Graham.
Thanks, Dean. I saw the drink here, and I thought you were going to leave it here for me. But as I look over your congregation and some of your guests here tonight, I see that I have a great deal of work still to do. And one of the reasons that I think that Bob Hope has lasted is because of his genuineness. He's absolutely genuine, 100%. There's no pretense about Bob Hope, except when it comes to counting his golf score. We've been friends for a good many years, but there's nothing probably that we wouldn't do for each other or to each other. For instance, I recall down in Dallas some time ago, we were golf partners in a golf tournament with Byron Nelson. And Bob asked me to sign his scorecard. And I had to refuse on the grounds of the 9th commandment, thou shalt not bear false witness. So you know what Bob did? Bob signed my name to the scorecard on the grounds that there's no commandment that says, thou shalt not commit forgery. God bless you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the multi-pounder Rick Schroeder.
Thank you, Dean. See, they got my whole act up here. And there's Howard Cosell, pretending to have a good time. But I'll tell you what's really on his mind. Nothing. No, Howard's sitting there saying to himself, I hope this roast doesn't go too long tonight because I've got to get home and make up some more of those funny signs for next Monday night's football. Jimmy Stewart, you know what he's thinking? Now remember, it's Bob Hope, Bob. Now, when you get up there, remember it's Bob. You know, come to think of it, now that I look over the dais here, I can do everybody up here. Well, almost everybody, but the guest of honor.
You can't do Geraldine, honey.
Yes, I can. You shut your mouth.
The only person in the world that can do me is Killer, honey.
We're now going to show you the highlights of Bob Hope's movies. This won't take very long. All of Bob Hope's pictures had the same thing in common. They were sophisticated, cultured, and high class.
Patty cake, baker's man. Bake a cake as fast as you can. Patty cake, baker's man. Bake a cake as fast as you... Patty cake, baker's man. Bake a cake as fast as you... Patty cake, baker's man. Bake a cake as...
Bob has never won an Oscar, and here's the reason why.
I can't go on. No food, no water. It's all my fault. We're done for. Stop. I can't stand it. No food.
What's the matter with you anyway? There's New York. We'll be picked up in a few minutes.
You had to open your big mouth, ruin the only good scene I got in the picture.
Finally, here's Hope the dancer. Bob has great rhythm until it reaches his feet.
A 2, a 3, a 4.
Now, here's the outspoken master of the English language, Mr. Howard Cosell. You all know Howard. He's delivered so many big words, he has stretch marks on his mouth. Ladies and gentlemen, the great mouthpiece, Mr. Howard Cosell.
You know, my good friend, it's a specious honor to be introduced by an artist like yourself, who has made, ladies and gentlemen, such staggering contributions to American music. Who will ever forget the memorable content of those lyrical and poetic phrases? When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. Or the never to be forgotten, Dino. Volare, oh. Volare, oh, ho, ho, ho. But actually, you look great tonight, Bob. One looks at you and knows it's the orthopedic tuxedo. I wager the thing Bob Hope is best noted for, Dino, unlike yourself, is entertaining the servicemen. He's discontinued the trips. He still can't get out of the habit. This Christmas, ladies and gentlemen, Robert Hope is going to Mattel Toys to entertain the G.I. Joe doll. We'll all be there.
Howard, you're great with words. Nothing with jokes, but great with words. Ladies and gentlemen, the Sunshine Boy, Mr. Jack Benny.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad to have been invited here tonight. And I'm sure you'll hear some wonderful things said about Bob, but not from me. But for the benefit of you who may not be aware of it, Bob was born in England, and the first time he came to entertain to America was to entertain the troops at Valley Forge. In fact, Bob liked entertaining the troops so much, he decided to make the trip every Christmas. And he did this at a great sacrifice. On every one of these trips, he had to take with him Jill St. John, Anita Ekberg, Raquel Welch, Anne Margaret, and the Gold Diggers. I wouldn't go through that ordeal for $100. Now, almost every TV comedian, of course, uses cue cards. But Bob's the only one I know who uses them at house parties. He even used cue cards on his wedding night. Can you imagine a man not knowing what to say on his wedding night? He was so nervous, he finally threw up his hands and shouted, "Not now, sweetheart, I have a headache." And his wife, Dolores, said, "Bob, you're reading my card."
People always make fun of Zsa Zsa Gabor and her marriages. I don't know why. She's only had 5 husbands and 4 of them were her own. One she threw back because she was over her limit for the year. Ladies and gentlemen, a woman of whom the 4th Hungarian Cavalry once said, "Miss Zsa Zsa Gabor."
Well, Bob has his way of entertaining the troops, and I have mine. Darling, you said such terrible things about me. Am I glad I never married you? Dear, sweet Bob, you always have a soft spot in my heart. That's why I never married you. Even though Mama says, how can a man with $300 million not be sexy? but somehow you manage it.
Thank you, Zsa Zsa. Your monologue lasted much longer than one of your marriages. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Nipsey Russell.
We herald and acclaim Bob Hope tonight for his accomplishments and his deeds. Bob did a benefit performance in Watts and opened the show singing Bye Bye Blackbirds. Followed by Me and My Shadow. Followed by a mysterious fire in his house. I would like to take exception to some of the things that have been said here tonight because Bob is the soul of propriety. When he was doing his show in New York City, he got back to his hotel room, found two gorgeous females languishing in his boudoir, undulating seductively to lustful music. Bob said, "Just a minute." He said, "I'm a married man. You're beautiful, but it is not proper for you two young girls to be here in my room. One of you will have to go." Tonight I rubbed elbows with the governor of California. I had to rub his elbow. He wouldn't shake my hand. And I appealed to Bob. I said, "Bob, tell the man it is time my people took their rightful place in society." Bob said, "Your rightful place is in the rhythm section of the band." But anyway, I stand here as one of the few people who has had the great fortune of making a tour with Bob Hope. At one airport, I remember he rushed onto the wrong plane accidentally and sat down with some people being transferred to an institution for the criminally insane. The attendant came by checking his roster. He said, 1, 2, 3. He saw Bob. He said, "Who are you?" He said, "Battlefield Bob, troubadour of the war zones and friend of every president in the United States." The guy said, 5, 6.
Let me say that
Yeah.
Nipsey is funny, I admit that, but let me tell you, uptown we got niggas like better than him who ain't working.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very proud to be able to introduce this time America's only living five-star general, General of the Army, Omar Nelson Bradley.
It was during World War II that I first met old Ski Nose here. I cannot deny Bob's great courage. Time after time, while flying to do a show, his plane was shot at, occasionally by the enemy. I'm grateful to be here, a part of this show, especially since earlier this evening, Bob implied that he is thinking of getting out of show business. Maybe this isn't so startling and bad after all. This great American has always been willing to do what's best for the country.
Ladies and gentlemen, the $6 million man, Phyllis Diller.
Thank you, Dean. Dean, you are a beautiful hunk of man. And if General Bradley orders me to attack, you're first. I can't tell you how happy I am to be here because I owe a lot to Bob Hope. It was Bob Hope who made it possible for me to have my facelift. He sold my old nose to Carl Malden. But when I first first came to Hollywood, it was Bob who discovered me. I was working at a kennel. Testing flea collars. Next thing I knew, I was co-starring in a movie with Bob. What a lover. He really knows how to kiss a girl. I haven't seen movement like that with lips since I gave my dog a sticky Tootsie Roll. Now, I'm not saying the picture was bad, but the premiere was held at a photomat. Bob, darling, you made me what I am today. Depressed.
May I ask Bob if there was anyone special he'd like to appear on tonight's roast? He said he'd always wanted to meet Howard Hughes. I said, gee, Bob, you might as well ask for the man in the moon. So he did, and we got him. Mr. Neil Armstrong.
Shortly after our moon landing, Bob invited me to join him on his annual Christmas tour. This was in keeping with one of Bob's firmly established traditions, exploit anybody in the news. I know this comes as a surprise to you, Mark. Of course, the lunar landing made headlines all over the world. So it seemed a bit strange when Bob said, "Come with me on the tour, and I'll make you famous." Bob, just to show you that there's no hard feelings, I arranged a special treat for you. You often told me how you'd like to have a ride on a rocket, so I've fixed it for you. Your rocket is waiting on the rim of the Snake River Canyon.
Have a great ride, Bob.
There have been so many attacks on Bob Hope tonight, we figured we should call in a mediator. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to present from Washington, D.C., our Secretary of State, Dr. Henry Kissinger.
Thank you, Dean. It is a great pleasure for me to pay tribute to my friend and fellow globetrotter, Bob Hope, who symbolizes so well the sense of humor of our country. There was some doubt as to whether I could make an appearance on this show because of my tight schedule. But when I hesitated, Bob said that if I didn't appear, he would stop paying his taxes. And you know what that would mean for government solvency. We don't do anything in Washington these days without asking the permission of Congress. So I asked Congress whether I could appear, and I have a message to you from the entire Congress. They have proclaimed you the funniest man in the world. The vote was 268 to 267. I think we can all agree that Bob's humor, his joy and laughter and humanity represent something universal in the human spirit. I'm therefore delighted to be a part of this evening's tribute to my friend, Bob Hope. Thank you.
And now it's time to introduce the master of the insults, the only man who holds a black belt for hatred. Evel Knievel's next jump is his mouth. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've had your rabies shots because here he comes, Mr. Don Rickles.
Dean, I thank you for your wonderful introduction. You would love the evening if you knew you were here. We have so many great celebrities. Of course, I want to thank Neil Armstrong. Neil? Over here, Neil. You're down. Neil Armstrong, the great astronaut, said in the capsule, "Hey, man, this is the moon." But I kid you. You're a great hero. You've told me that time and time again. I want to thank Sugar Ray Robinson, who said to Rocky Graziano in the 5th round, "Hey, baby, you're hurting me." Sugar Ray's a great champion. Sugar, we'd ask you to talk, but you know the blacks, your lips locked. There's no booing, there's no booing. If there's another outburst, we're gonna let Bob Hope get up and do his jokes. We kid about great stars such as you, Bob. Why? Because you're old and washed up. But I tell you this. Is he laughing, Dean? Take a look. See if Bob's laughing. If he ain't laughing, show him a picture of Jack. I'll tell you this. I kid Jack Benny, a great star, God bless him. Milton Berle, great people. This is wonderful being here at the home. And I say this from my heart. No, it's a joke. It's a joke. It's a joke. Bob, it's a joke. Take it back, I said. It's a joke. It takes many years to be a great comedian.
Sure does, and you ain't reached that year yet.
Thank you, Jerry. Dean's laughing. And why not, Dean? There's a contract out for you. Frank Sinatra's friend plans to knock you off Manganzo Mangananzo. Bob Hope just turned around. Is he trouble? I kid, Dean. He's Italian, and we need the Italian people to find out where the mail goes. We need people like Bob Hope. He is not Irish, he's not Jewish, he's not Italian, he's not black. Just an all-American guy. When he was born, he came out of his mother with a flag wrapped around him. Jimmy Stewart, one of our great stars. And James Stewart, I'd love you. We'd ask you to stand, but we know the movement could make you ill. Jimmy Stewart has been a great star for so many years. General Omar Bradley, all our great stars. Governor Ronald Reagan, who's going to retire after so many years of good service. And Governor, I say from my heart, I'm fed up with you. And so to all of you. And Billy Graham, bless you, Billy. I mean that from my heart. You've helped me to walk again. And I know this from my heart. I've always walked, but Billy helped me to walk faster. And as Billy Graham and Marjo always said, if Bob Hope knew that there was one light in life, let the life know. Hallelujah, brother, let him know it. And so, in all honesty, America loves you, our president loves you, you are America. And to you, Bob Hope, may God be good to you and yours. And I thank you for letting me be part of this dais. On behalf of my wife, my children, I am delighted to say I know Mr. Bob Hope. Bless you.
Our next speaker is the person who, over the years, has been closest to you. Yes, Bob, even closer than Les Brown. For the past 40 years, your wife, Dolores, has raised your children, kept your house, and packed your bags. In fact, she told us that she sent you packing over 200 times, but you never got the hint. It is now my great pleasure to introduce to the audience and to you, Bob, your lovely wife, Dolores.
It was really, however, very difficult to sit back and sit quietly while all these things were being said about Bob, these insults and ridicules. Many times I felt like jumping to my feet and shouting, "Hear, hear." Dean, I'd like to thank you for giving me the privilege of introducing the guest of honor, which oddly enough is what we call him at home. And so, ladies and gentlemen, here's that moment we've all been dreading. The man of the hour, my husband, Bob Hope.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I wish she'd get steady work. No, it's nice to see her. I haven't been traveling too much lately, and I've gotten to know some of the family personally. It's nice to be here, Dean, and I wanted to tell you that I'm happy that NBC renewed your liquor license for another year. Don't you love the way Dean reads cue cards? If he doesn't like the joke, he breathes on it and erases it. Oh, it was nice of Flip to show it. Is that all of them? Oh, I've never seen him before without high heels. Is that it, huh? Well, thank you, Flip. No, I really miss Flip's series, but he has to face the facts. He's good, but he's no Sonny Bono. And I do want to thank Governor Reagan for his kind words. Incidentally, the governor has no presidential aspirations. In fact, he just made a tour of 43 states just to tell him he's not running for anything. And Milton Berle's here. Milton's the first comic to ever be impeached. Johnny Bench, the greatest catcher of all time. You ever see him behind the plate? He wears more padding than Phyllis Diller. Oh, I like John, I really do. He doesn't care about baseball. He just stands in the hall out here watching the chicks and smiling. Of course, you'd smile too if you spent all your afternoons on grass. And I really enjoyed Phyllis Diller, the girl who inspired that great movie, Psycho. I can't get over how well she looks since she had that operation. It's a miracle. It was over a year ago, and the stitches on the right are still holding. And wasn't John Wayne wonderful? In his next sequel to True Grit, John is really giving us a thrill. He's wearing the patch over his mouth. And Sugar Ray is one of my great, great favorites. Everyone knows about the great job you're doing, Sugar, with your youth foundation, football, baseball, boxing, basketball. You taught those kids how to bet on all of them. And Ginger Rogers, the last time I worked with Ginger was on a Christmas trip to Alaska. She not only stole the show, but she replaced 2 electric blankets. And thank you, Billy Graham. Star of radio, television, and heaven. And I didn't expect to see General Jimmy Stewart here. As usual, Jimmy's a man of few words and even fewer laughs. Now, Jimmy had me over to his house last week, and what a thrilling evening. He showed slides of his last trip to Fresno. And it's nice to see Zsa Zsa now that she's free again. Oh, I'm sorry, I should have said divorced. She's never been free. I really feel honored tonight, ladies and gentlemen, by General Bradley's presence here this evening. You talk about great generals. On June the 11th, 1944, he was parachuted behind enemy lines and under cover of night, snuck into the heart of Berlin and single-handedly captured Marlene Dietrich's garter belt. And Nipsey, you were really up there tonight. You keep it up and you'll be pumping gas for Chico and the Man. And Don Rickles got some news today. He was made poster boy for Tidy Bowl. Don, I just can't figure out why you're doing commercials for Right Guard. You should be on for Raid. Closing, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a great night. You know, somebody once said you can measure a man by the caliber of his enemies,
and I flatter myself to believe it might also apply to the friends who have come to roast them. And if I am right in that assumption, and it is rare that I am not, then I thank all of you giants of our business for the size your affectionate malice lends to me. Thank you very much.
Thanks for the memory of rainy afternoons, swingy Harlem tunes, motor trips and burning lips and burning toast and prunes.
How lovely it was. Thanks for the memory of candlelight and wine, castles on the Rhine, the Parthenon,
And moments on the Hudson River line.
how lovely it was.
Many's the time that we feasted,
And many's the time that we fasted.
oh well, it was swell while it lasted. We did have fun and no harm done. So thanks for the memory